Jack and I didn't know each other so well until we started working together on this speech. And when I heard his final version, I almost cried. I'm so proud of him. And I'm not going to do a big introduction. I'm just going to tell you the title of his speech. And it is, I Didn't Get Here Playing Video Games. Come on up, Jack.
Hi. So I want to ask you guys, for you, what is the first thing that comes to mind when you talk about Yorktown? Because for me, and I think for a lot of people, it's that it's a small school. You know, we have maybe, ballparking, about 100 students across a huge age range, which is a complete culture shock to anyone I talk to from a public high school. You know, I talk about having a graduating class of 5 people, and they're like, we have hundreds. So, you know, with all that said, when all of them are all staring at you and their families, 100 does not seem like such a small number anymore. But seriously, I have spent what feels like most of my life here at Yorktown. I certainly spent my formative years here becoming the person that I am today. I've learned a lot over the 5 years that I've attended this school. And I don't just mean things like Newton's laws, the quadratic formula. I'm more talking about a sort of introductory course to the way life works, and especially how college works. I feel the coursework in this school depends largely on time management, something I've had to learn to do fairly well. And on that subject, one could argue I've wasted a lot of time in my high school years, especially playing video games. I mean, I think a decent argument could be made for me being a slacker based on my hours in The Binding of Isaac. But I didn't get to where I am now, graduating and going to a good college, because I spent that time playing video games. I got here because overall, I would always spend more hours on what really mattered, my work and the things that I really cared about. For me, it always came down to determination and motivation. Not to mention the constant battle against procrastination. That's a battle I still face. Literally, as I wrote this speech, I was slipping between Microsoft Word and Netflix every few minutes. That's truthful. In life, I would struggle with things. And my strategy has basically always been to never give up. I endlessly hammer away at problems until I figure them out. And I do that because I honestly believe that's what life comes down to in the end, at its most basic level. Who's willing to keep going for longer? Who persists the most before tapping out and deciding that they no longer care about where their life goes? Now, I'll admit, I've lived a short life so far, so what do I know, right? But I've also done some research on this subject. I've read up on some notable individuals, and from my time doing those things, plus my personal experience, here's what I feel that I have determined. Determination and grit is what sets the successful and happy apart from the stagnant and unsuccessful. Intelligence and talent help, but they're worthless without the motivation to do what is necessary in order to obtain success. Apathy and an unwillingness to act ensure that your life never changes and are basically equivalent to saying that you're content with the way your life is right now. Let me tell you my story. When I first came to Yorktown, I was a very different person. You can ask anyone who knew me at the time. I was less composed, less mature, louder, much louder. In fact, a friend once got me a megaphone for my birthday. The general consensus around the school was that I didn't need it. Everyone could already hear me fine. Honestly, I think all the people who put up with me throughout my first 3 years of Yorktown deserve some kind of medal. And I'll admit that at that time, I didn't really like myself either. It wasn't really an active self-loathing at the time, but I definitely cried out for attention a lot. I didn't realize it at the time, but I think I was looking for validation from others in any form of attention that I could gain. I hadn't yet learned to love myself on my own merits, so I decided to rely on others to show me why I mattered. With that said, even in my darkest times, the philosophy I've always tried to uphold is the idea that with enough determination, enough perseverance, I can do pretty much anything. It's something that my father taught me from a young age, the idea that nothing is impossible if you just don't give up. So, both academically and socially, my way of solving issues has always been attacking them in any way I could until they eventually changed. I want to continue to be that way throughout my life because truly, I really do believe that's how a lot of the greats do it. For example, take J.K. Rowling. I consider her a huge role model. And she went through in a period of extreme poverty and failure before getting anywhere with Harry Potter. In her own words, and I love this quote, "Rock bottom became the solid foundation on which I rebuilt my life." Instead of letting her failures defeat her, she let them motivate her into not giving up. That's the kind of person I always aspired to be, even in my darkest times. That's not to say I was always completely convinced with that mindset. Now, there were certainly times when I was disillusioned by it, and came to believe it was more about how gifted you happen to be, how much talent you happen to have. There have been times in my life where I truly believe that only lucky people succeed. This is not the truth, but it can be so easy to believe it, because it's like an excuse to give up and stop caring. What it really comes down to, though, is who's willing to go farther. You can have all the talent in the world and end up getting nowhere because you weren't willing to do anything with it. A gifted person who believes life will hand them everything simply because they are gifted is the kind of person who never goes farther in life. People who go the extra mile to be exceptional are the ones that get somewhere. Again, though, over time I did become disillusioned with that optimistic attitude as life became more and more difficult and I didn't seem to be getting any stronger or better to match it. I'll admit, I never really struggled that much academically, but what I would ultimately end up struggling with personally was motivation. Over the course of my first 3 years of Yorktown, things got worse for my mental state before they got better, because even though I was trying to be a better person, I didn't feel I was. I still struggled to connect with people, and I still had difficulty with self-validation. It was around the 3rd year of Yorktown that I personally started to give up trying. And that was when I entered a period of really hating myself. I didn't like who I was, and I began to become convinced that I could never be the person that I wanted to be. I tried to push through, but there were times when I felt truly helpless. And at that point, I began to stop caring. A big problem with our culture today is many people have entered that point in their lives where they no longer care, at least as much as they could. It's a feeling we can all sympathize with. We've all put off work or decided not to do something because we felt that there's no point. We'll fail that assignment anyway, or nothing's gonna change no matter how hard we try. In a word, that's apathy. And it's the biggest thing I think I've struggled with in my life. Lloyd Cedar, medical director of the New York State Office of Mental Health, argued in an article of the academic journal Psychiatric Times that apathy is overwhelming the people today and is in fact our greatest threat. People don't vote because they feel their votes won't ultimately mean anything, in spite of the fact that things would likely change if all the people who didn't vote voted. People don't pursue their dreams anymore as much because they feel they won't ever reach them. That leads to less innovation. It's a huge problem, and it's been getting worse. I can't blame people, especially when I've been there myself. When things begin to feel hopeless, my reaction in the past has been to just give up and let whatever happens, happen. In my worst moments, I tend to stop caring. Now, I think this apathy largely stems from a psychiatric effect known as learned helplessness. The concept of learned helplessness was coined by psychiatrist Martin Seligman in 1967. It is the psychological effect of trying something, failing at it, trying it again, failing again, so on and so forth, until you reach the conclusion that it's simply impossible and just give up. It's present in humans, elephants, rats, dogs, pretty much anything with a brain and a willingness to persist. That's what I was suffering from for about a year of my life. I felt that no matter what I tried, There was nowhere to escape from my problems because I felt that they were basic facts about myself. They were who I were. It felt completely hopeless, and I wondered what the point was of even trying. The reality, of course, was that not only was I capable of self-improvement, I had already improved greatly. I was a better person, more composed, more mature, and less loud. And I should have been able to see that. It's very easy to fall into the impression that we cannot help ourselves. We've all been there. This kind of learned helplessness happens on multiple levels, whether it's an impossible math problem or a battle within yourself. There's been several interesting studies on the subject explaining the science and psychology behind learned helplessness and how it absolutely just debilitates creatures of any species and leaves them less willing to even try to help themselves. Every one of us has felt that completely helpless at one point. Of course, the big trick to learned helplessness, even in animals, is that the ones who succeed are the ones who keep going even when they hit rock bottom. It's the underdog success story. Even when faced with great failure, the really successful people don't give up. That's what I've always tried to be, and I think that's what this school has taught me to be. And I really think that's the most valuable thing I'm taking away from my experiences here at Yorktown. That understanding of persistence and self-assurance, even in the face of devastating defeat. It took me perhaps a year, but I did eventually wake up and see all the progress I'd made as a person and all that I still could if I didn't give up. So that's been my great personal project since then. To become a person that not only other people could respect, but that I could love on my own merits. I stopped caring so much what other people thought of me and focused more on becoming the person that I wanted to be. And now, I'm leaving the school with a lot of people who genuinely care about me and will miss me when I'm gone. At least they better. And most importantly, for the first time in my teenage life, I actually like who I am. For the most part. I still have issues with myself that I'm working out, and that's what I'm going to be doing going into college. And I'm continuing to improve myself and be a better person. And I urge you all to do the same. At the end of the day, I'm still new to this. I'm still early in my life, and moving forward, I have a lot to discover about the world and about myself. There's still plenty I don't know. But I will say this. I know everyone in this room. I've formed relationships with you, and I can name pretty much all of you off of memory. That's a huge achievement for me, given my awful memory. It's the main advantage of going to a small school. I personally know every single one of you. Every one of you is not truly helpless. Every one of you has the ability to make what you want of your lives. Every one of you is gifted, and you all have the strength to make something of it. Even those of you who don't feel they're smart are strong enough. I've known you long enough to know that you are, even if you don't see it. My advice to you is to identify the real issues in your life and persevere through them, because I promise you, they will get better. As John Lennon once said, everything will be okay in the end. If it's not okay, it's not the end. You all have the power to be the people that you want to be. Just don't give up. Thank you.